Frankly speaking, I'm here now. Let's run it.
Well, good evening to each and every one of you who are on this live tonight on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you so much for being with me here on Frankly Speaking tonight. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of guests in the building tonight. So I am Frank, the host of Frankly Speaking. So thank you for joining me tonight. Would you do me a favor? I want you to listen in the comment section. What city you're from, your city and your state. Put that in the comment section. Let me know where you're representing from. And then the second thing I want you to do is hit that share button for me so those on your timeline can participate in this live tonight. Well, listen, a legend, a legend is oftentimes viewed as someone whom is older or someone whom is no longer with us. But I've discovered that a legend is not defined by the amount of time he lives. That only tells part of the story. But a person can be deemed a legend by what they do with the time that they do indeed live right here on earth. And without question, my guest tonight is a towering and legendary figure of our time, a figure of our day, that we all know. He is indeed the millennial preacher, the millennial pastor that we all love him. And I'm honored and I'm privileged to have him. I'm privileged to know him. I'm privileged to be able to call him friend. Whenever I call him, he answers. Whenever I text him, he responds. And whenever I've needed him, he's been there for me. Even some of the times where I needed advice in the midst of transition, he's been there for me to give me advice. And I'm grateful for him being with us tonight. I'm talking about none other than my friend and my brother, the one and only, the pastor of New Birth down there in Georgia, one and only Pastor Jamal Bryant. Jamal, how you feeling tonight?
Man, wonderfully well. Good to hear your voice. I'm honored to be on your show. Before we talk about anything, let me tell you, your whole packaging is absolutely incredible. And I don't give that away lightly. A lot of people are fumbling the ball in this COVID, but your opening is dope. Your PR is great. You are killing the game. So I just want to give you kudos. I'm getting ready to text my staff to let them see what you're doing. You killing it.
Well, there's major coming from somebody who always does it major. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. All right, so let's get started. Let's get started. We're not going to be as long as I normally am on Thursday night. So let's get started. All right, Jamal. So we did it. We did what we aimed to do in these past couple of months. We got Trump out of office. When I say we, I'm talking about those of us that voted. You were not secretive about it, about who you wanted out of office and who you wanted in office. And I myself am an avid voter, and I vote in every election, locally and nationally. But there is a consensus and a nucleus among us in our Black community that say we always admonishing them to vote, but them voting has enacted very little change on a mass scale. So as an activist yourself, how do you prevent those around us from coming disinterested in doing the one thing that we all have the power to do for sure, and that's to vote?
The Bible says our people died from a lack of knowledge. And those who say voting hasn't made a difference really don't have knowledge. The reality is it was the Voting Rights Act that allowed us the opportunity to not just go to TSU and Harry, but to be able to go to Vanderbilt. It was
Yeah.
because of voting that we're able to go into Macy's and try on joggers and Air Jordans. It's because of voting that now you don't have to live in just one particular zip code in Memphis, but can live anywhere.
Yeah.
Voting has been the most progressive tool of choice for African Americans for our advancement. We have no record, Frank, of what rioting has done to advance the cause,
Mm.
what violence has done to advance the cause. But we can look through and see what voting has done.
Yeah. Yeah. That's real. So for those of us that do vote, and for those of us that kind of lean towards the side of, I hear you, Jamal, but in this next administration, what are some key policies, just a few key policies that need to be pushed and implemented that can really affect the lives of those of us that are colored?
Yeah. Let me say to you, number one is the legalization of cannabis, marijuana. The reality is that we don't talk about in church. Most black men who are in jail for nonviolent offenses,
Yeah.
for possession,
Yeah.
for intent to distribute. Most of the violent perpetrators in America are white males. Can
Mm.
you imagine what it would do to the prison pipeline if we took weed off of the books? The
Yeah.
NBA decided that weed is no longer going to be tested for any of its athletes this next season. That's
Yeah.
number one. Number two is the funneling of intentional capital to support our HBCUs. The reality is a lot of our historically black colleges are in dire straits and are in need of assistance. President Trump promised and pledged it, but never delivered on it. A lot of our students are not going to qualify to be able to go back next semester. They won't be able to secure a Pell Grant because their parents have been laid off or terminated under the canopy of COVID-19. That's two.
Yeah.
Number three is the fortification of universal health care. One of the things that we saw is a lot of black people are dying, here it is, of curable diseases. Most black men never go to the hospital unless they're going through the door of the emergency room. And so there's got to be affordable health care for everyone. The fourth one is that there's got to be funneling of capital, as access to capital for minority businesses.
Okay.
Frank, you get off this phone with me tonight, go to Wells Fargo tomorrow, and say that you want to launch your own internet station. It's going to be hard for you to get a loan. But if you go to that same bank with your same credit and tell them you want money to get a used car, they'll give it to you without blinking. And so
Wow.
there's going to be a changing of the banking system and our access to capital.
Wow. Listen, I hope y'all listening in the comment section. I want you to put some of those quotes, some of those things that he just said need to be implemented. I want you to write it down. Write it down. Don't let this knowledge go wasted tonight. Those of you that are in your individual communities, these are things that we need to hold our politicians accountable for. Amen, church. All right, so that seems to be somewhat of an interesting development over the past 4 years. The numbers suggest that support among black males for Donald Trump did not decrease in 4 years, but it indeed, by suggestive numbers, say that it increased
Yeah.
this past election cycle. When I go to the barbershop and ask them questions, who you voting for? Do you care to vote? They all seem to echo the same sentiment, and that is that Donald Trump really wasn't that bad. That he really didn't have any issues with black people, that we just didn't like him because he was real and told the truth. What do you say to let's talk to the men, just the black men. What would you say if a black man was sitting in front of you and said that he has absolutely no issue with Donald Trump and he voted for Donald Trump?
I would say to him that I felt bad for him that he doesn't have a good black woman in his life,
Wow.
because black women have paved the way for democracy since 2008. The most consistent voting bloc in America is black women.
Yeah.
Black men who say that he wasn't that bad don't care anything about the 6,000 children who are in cages right now. The black men who will say that have no idea why it is that Africa got no support. Black men can't point to one black man that he put around him that was intelligent, that was smart.
Mhm.
Black men didn't even know that the only people who prospered in the pandemic are millionaires, which is
Wow.
why people like Lil Wayne and 50 Cent signed off, because they looked at it for personal gain and not community development. So black men who voted for Trump really don't have a good black woman in their life, and they need to reevaluate who they married to or who they're dating.
That's real. All right. While we on that tip, let's jump to the other side of the fence. Because white Christians have an undeniable history of using the Bible to justify enslavement and marginalization of African Americans in this country. It's undeniable. They have a history of that. And recently, when all of the controversy about who you was gonna vote for was transpiring in our churches, we had a whole bunch of white evangelicals that were extremely bold and extremely loud with aligning themselves with politicians and ideologies that are blatantly anti-black. How should we as black leaders address these types of people that say they serve the same God as us?
Is that we remind them that there's always been in America, where it is nowhere else in the world, a slave religion. They use the Bible to keep us subservient, to keep us mild, and to keep us submissive. Uh, the original slave Bible, which is now in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., notes that there is no book of Exodus. They ripped out the entire book of Exodus because they didn't want slaves to hear about liberation and being set free.
Yeah.
Secondly, evangelicals proved how disconnected they are to culture and to times, because they echoed only two issues. The two issues that they echoed was, number one, about abortion, and number two, about same-sex marriage. Frank, here's the drum roll. Neither of these are on the ballot. America's not voting on abortion or same-sex marriage. That's why you have Freedom of Religion Act. So for you to argue issues that are not even in contention says that you have absolutely no idea what's taking place. My argument to evangelicals is that you are not pro-life, you're pro-birth. Because if you were pro-life, why did no evangelical say anything about Breonna Taylor? If you're pro-life, why did no evangelical say anything about George Floyd? Today at 9:27, a brother was killed through capital punishment. The president that they say is God's chosen man is endorsed life sentences 27 times, and the
Wow.
evangelicals have not checked them. If they're pro-life after the baby is born, why do the Republicans want to take away money from Head Start programs? If they're pro-life, why do they make it hard for senior citizens to have to choose between food and medication? And so that's a problem. Secondly, even in the marriage of same-sex marriages, the law does not necessitate that we have to oversee the marriage. If you are against it, then you don't have to perform it. Might I suggest to you, these preachers, evangelicals, you're against Chirac, but you're not asking whether or not Donald Trump drinks it, because it's not on the ballot. And so I think that we have to argue the things that are on the ballot and deal with it on that wise.
Yeah, because one of the issues that I have, because I have some white evangelical friends. I went to seminary with 99% white evangelicals, and I had them on my show a couple of weeks ago, and they said this is out of their own mouth that the reason why they disconnect from the phrase Black Lives Matter is because of the organization. Or because of certain things as the set organization has declared that they are for. They
Yeah.
say that they are for.
Here is
Uh,
the
yeah,
hypocrisy of the church, Frank.
yeah, yeah,
They are against Black Lives Matter because Black Lives Matter was formed by three queer sisters.
hmm
Here's the reality.
yeah,
Are they against gospel music?
hmm
They still listen to gospel music.
right,
Many of the writers are gay. Many of the
yeah,
organists are gay.
yeah,
Many of the ministers of music are gay, but they still sing gospel music. We can't cherry pick it.
yeah,
The fact that Black Lives Matter is a debatable issue is an affront to the essence of the gospel itself. Is
mm,
that we were created in his image and in his likeness. That scripture is not just for European and Irishmen, but all of us were created in his image and his likeness, and evangelicals ought to be trumpeting that louder than any other sector to say that that's true because we're God's children. But they
yeah,
can't
yeah.
because they still co-opt the slave religion that suggests that we're 3/5 of a human being.
Let's backtrack. What's up, Fisher? Good to see you tonight. Let's backtrack just a tad. Just a tad. I asked this question a couple weeks ago because there are a group of us, when I say us, same skin people, especially preachers, who say that when I say stuff like, why haven't seen you at a march, or why haven't I seen you at this or that, they say that part of activism is not my calling.
Yes.
In other words, they suggest that in order to be an activist, it has to be a calling other than your calling and preach.
Yeah.
Is activism a obligation and a responsibility of the black preacher?
But it is how you do advocacy work.
All right.
So, Reverend Sharpton and I, a few years ago, did a march in New York. We're coming across the bridge. The police tell us to go back. We don't go back, we go forward. We get arrested. Frank end up in jail. We're in the holding cell, 100 of us get arrested. You ain't gonna believe it. We look across in the holding cell, and our lawyer is in the jail with us.
Wow.
We're like, Negro, what you doing in here? We need you out there to get us out. Because
Yeah.
you got a role to play. When I say to pastors, yes, everybody can't march, but here's three things that you can do that don't necessitate you marching or getting arrested. Why not extend your church for organizers to be able to meet in? One.
Yeah.
Number two, you don't want them to come in? Let them use the Wi-Fi from your parking lot for free.
Wow.
Don't want them to do that? Let me give you another one. Third one, let them use the church bus that y'all ain't used in 9 months because of COVID. You don't
Yeah.
want to do that? Here's a fourth one. Since you are so spiritual and is separate from church and state, have a night of prayer for activists. Have a season of fasting
Yeah.
for those who are on the front line. Because I've not heard any church, I'm going to go a step further, I've not heard a denomination do it. If you don't want to see activism that way, why are we not raising up in our youth ministries and our youth departments, grooming young people to run for city council, raising young people to become the mayor, to become the state's attorney? So there are other ways that you can do activism without being an agitator.
All right. That's good. Somebody is indeed use Wi-Fi from your building. That was the second one. Third, use the church bus. Fourth, have a night of prayer for activism phase. Y'all own it in the comment section. Thank y'all so much. Listen, write them down. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. All right. So my question is this, Jamal. Is it possible for, or is it a reality? That's maybe a better word. It's always possible, but is it a reality that black leaders and white evangelical leaders will ever be able to work together to press the issues that plague specifically us as a people forward and out of the way? Do you think that's ever a reality that we will come together and get some things done because it's coming from both of us?
Yeah, the Bible says there'll be a day a lion lays down with a lamb. Uh, so, so I think there can come a day for a Baptist to sit down with a Southern Baptist.
Yeah.
The Bible says, "Come, let us reason together." And part of the disconnect, Frank, is that we have not had an open form of dialogue. A few months ago, Paula White called for African angels to come and assist Donald Trump. I invited her to an open discourse, to which she summarily refused.
Yeah.
But I think that we have to have an open portal of conversation, find out what is our common denominators, and move from there. Because what I'm sick of is of us only doing unity services around Dr. King's birthday, or if there's a school shooting at one of their schools.
Yeah.
If it's at our school, they ain't coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for theirs, they expect us to show up with a candle. So I'm hoping that we can foster conversations, and it may be with seminarians who are colleagues of yourself, of your generation, that's going to be able to spearhead it.
That's real. Let's shift it because I ain't got him long, y'all. He's busy, so I'm grateful that he's on tonight. Listen, last week, Warner Brothers made a huge announcement that for all of 2021, they're not only going to premiere movies in the movie theaters, but because of limited capacity, they're also going to premiere them on HBO Max, which is a streaming apps. Which means that not only will you be able to go to the movie theater to see a premiere on the day it comes out, but you'll also be able to stay at home and watch it from the comfort of your living room on the same day that the movie comes out. That absolutely changes the game for 2021 and the projection of movies forever. With that in mind, today it looks like we're almost at the point that vaccination for this COVID-19 will be approved. So we already know the hope has risen for churches all over America that maybe 2021 will be back how it used to be. So I want to ask you the question. Do you feel like, with that in mind, that the trajectory and the projection of church, the landscape of it has been changed forever, or will we go back to how it used to be?
We'll never go back to how it used to be. I want to ask somebody who's in the comments I'm drafting you to be my secretary. There's a new phrase that I want Frank, the viewers, listeners to look up and the research. I just did a 2-day intensive with my staff, and I want to give it to you all. The concept that Warner Brothers is rolling out is a new one called phygital. Phygital. Ask somebody to type that on the screen for me.
Type it on the screen, yeah.
Yeah, it is the dimension of being both physical and digital. We will never go back to being the way that it was before. Frank, think about it this way as a critical thinker. It takes 30 days to create a habit, but you've been out of church for 230.
Wow.
Your church members have adjusted to praise and worship in pajamas. What will be the carrot to make them get up, get their kids up, and drive 25 minutes to go sit in church when they've adjusted to doing it at home? And outside of me offering you communion, what am I going to offer you to make you come? It's going to be the very first time in church history that we will have to evangelize the saved. It will not be sinners we're trying to get in. It's going to be church people we're going to try to have to get back in the church. Wow. So the model is completely obstructed, and the way that it was, it will never be again.
So what can churches do to be ready for this reality to hit? Because we all got some friends who their rhetoric is, when we go back, when things return to normal? How would you help your brothers and sisters who this reality is going to hit, that people are now comfortable being at home and they no longer feel obligated to come to the building? How are you going to help them? What can they do?
Is be mindful that 92%, pastors who are listening, I want you to write this down. 92% of what Jesus did was outside of the church.
Wow.
Now we trying to force him into a building that he never flowed in. 99% of Jesus's miracles didn't happen at church.
Wow.
They happened outside. Isn't it amazing, Frank, that you had no discussion about the mosque rushing to go back in? You're hearing no discussion about the synagogue rushing to go back in. It's only the church, because we have only taught fellowship. We have not taught the power of aloneness. We have never taught the saints how to meditate. Never taught the saints how to pray on their own. So we have weakened believers to make them feel as if for them to be connected, they got to be in a building. And the intention of Jesus's ministry was said, listen, you don't need this building to get to me.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, I am. And so it's going to take the church to restructure its thinking so that we understand I am the church. See, one of the things that COVID did is it took away the theater of church. Ain't no drama. All we can do is deal with the substance of things hoped for. Can you preach when you ain't turning to your neighbor? You have something to say when you ain't shaking their hand till it's going to shake off.
Yeah.
Do you have content without putting your finger in your ear? So we have gone 9 months, Frank, of preaching without ever having to change our shirt.
Yeah.
It's a completely different paradigm where people are actually learning something. And so the adjustment is not for the church. I want to say this while tomatoes are being thrown at me virtually. The adjustment is going to have to be for the preachers. Can I make the adjustment? And do I really need the church? Hear this, is going to offend some people. Or does my ego need the church? Because you're preaching to more people online. You're making a larger impact. But you want that room just for your own affirmation. If God is getting the glory in this space, then why is it that we feel like you got to be in a building? Most of us doing Christmas shopping, if you were doing it in these perilous economic times, most people are shopping online. Right? Fastest growing stock is Uber Eats, because people are getting the food and eating it at home. Culture changes every 4 years, but church culture changes every 20.
Wow.
So average church is 15 years behind schedule. So as a consequence, most of these black churches are proud because they got Facebook, right? But now the new wave is Clubhouse. Ain't nobody on Facebook.
Yeah.
Most churches that you know that are black don't have a Snapchat account. So they're not even competing in the realm or in the language of the demographic they claim that they want. Facebook was popping until your mama tried to befriend you. Then all of us jumped it with somewhere else. Am I lying?
Yeah, no.
Somewhere else because we didn't want to be on that page. You don't even go to Facebook.
Yeah.
You now tap all of your stuff together from Instagram, so it just goes to that automatically, and you just checking the DMs and going on about life.
Yeah.
And so the church has got to catch up to where it is that the new wave is.
Listen, man, if you enjoying this conversation, do me a favor. Bless that Cash App you see running across the bottom of the screen before I ask this next question. Listen, tonight, we didn't need to do 90 minutes. This has been awesome. In the time we have been on, Jamal is excellent as always. Can't nobody out-talk Jamal Bryant. I don't care what you say, no matter where you put. You can put him on any platform, on any subject. Can't nobody outdo him. You feel me? So look, this is a little juicy question, Jamal. This is a juicy question. I had to throw one in there. As a norm, as a status quo, it has always been that most churches, most people would rather see their pastor be married. But there is a rising demographic of pastors and preachers who are divorced and stay divorced, or whom are single and have never been married, and they are pastoring and pastoring well. My question to you is, do you believe that the paradigm on that also is shifting, where the churchgoer no longer cares if their pastor is married or not?
Now, I think the churchgoer does care. In the 1950s, 50% of the US population was married. The overwhelming majority of Americans right now are not married, either by death, by divorce, by desperation, or by decision. I think that a single pastor walks with a limp in ministry and is not able to give the full totality of what is available. I think that the necessity of the bride is mindful that the original church was under the canopy of marriage. I am a divorced pastor, been so for 10 years, and I know the difference. It impacts your marriage ministry. It impacts how many marriages are performed in the ministry. It impacts your family life of the church. It impacts, can I say this, your women's department. It impacts whether or not you're preaching to a whole healthy church, or are you creating a sanctified singles conference? So I think that it gives a greater level of balance if the pastor is married. And I'm saying that in the full hypocrisy of being a divorced pastor.
Yeah, yeah, that's real. I I want to add my little 2 cents right here and say
Copy.
that I and say that
He didn't come down to save himself. Go ahead.
I do think that it being more acceptable has relieved the pressure and the necessity, the immediate necessity of a pastor being married. So therefore it has relieved the pressure of him having to stay in a miserable, him or her to stay in a miserable marriage, or the pressure to marry just because. And they have now have the freedom to date a while, to make sure and not rush into anything just because I am a pastor and I need to be back. What you think about that?
Frank, I'm trying to cover you the best that I can. I think all things are good in moderation.
Yeah.
The deficit is that you don't have the benefit of a private life absent of speculation. So if you, Frank, are going to lunch with somebody, it could be about anything. Is automatically presumed that this is who you're dating, this is who you're courting, who you're seeing, and it could be about expanding your brand. I mean, it could
Yeah.
be about
Real
enlarging
talk.
your social media footprint.
Yeah.
And so what that does is it forces pastors not to have a private life, but to have a secret one. And having a secret life can become very duplicitous and toxic because you're not owning your true self.
That, if I could be transparent on my platform tonight, that has been one of my downfalls in relationships because, like you said, it causes us to live a level of secrecy when women feel like you ought to want to own all of me in front of everybody. So I've never posted a girlfriend publicly. It's certain
Right.
things
Which, Frank, I'm not sure is healthy
yeah.
because that pulls you into a secret life. So if you were Frank Ray III, attorney at law, then it'd be no problem for you celebrating Valentine's Day with the love of your life. taking a picture with somebody going Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
You are auctioning a part of your humanity to
Yeah.
suggest that all you have is who you are as a preacher, and you are absent of who you are as a person.
Wow.
That's unfair. So, at what point do you do it? For you to make the resolute statement, never post?
Mm-hmm.
At what point? You date them a year?
Yeah.
Them 18 months, they still
Yeah.
got to consistently audition,
Yeah.
which cheapens the value of who they are and diminishes the capacity of the man of who you can become. So
Yeah.
then when you all of a sudden introduce Mary Jane to the church and say, this y'all next first lady, they like, who is this?
Yeah.
Where did they come from? And so
So
you're putting her then at a disadvantage as to how it is that she's able to assert herself.
now you're going against everything old school taught us. Now, old school taught us you
Now,
you don't
you said you was
acknowledge.
a new dispensation now. You can't be on there with disco lights and a crystal ball beside you, and now you talking about what is the old standard.
So let me get it right.
Yes.
So you telling me Dr. Jamal Harrison Bryant is an advocate of pastors and preachers dating publicly?
I said when you get to a certain point,
Okay.
yes. I asked how
What's
long.
the certain point?
I don't know. I don't know. When you feel like that is going somewhere.
Okay.
When you feel like it's going, I am not an advocate that you just posting everybody you meet. I ain't an advocate that you up
Right.
liking pics all night. That is not what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you that you can't live your whole life in a dark alley.
That's real. That's real. That is good to me. All right. Listen, I got to let him go. He told me 30 minutes. We already ate over. So let's do this. I normally, most of my shows, I play a lightning round where I give a person, a name of a person or a phrase, and you give me a brief description of what that person or that phrase is indicative of to you.
Got it.
All right. So, first one, let's do Martin Luther King Jr.
The greatest prophet not in the Bible.
Wow. Malcolm X.
The failure of the Black church. Malcolm X, Frank, was the son of a Baptist preacher. He lost his way, went to jail, and nobody from the church went to go visit him. While he was in jail, that's when the Nation of Islam adopted him. I shudder in my sleep to think, what if the church actually saw his value and stuck with him and developed him? What kind of a ministry and an impact he would have made.
Wow. Wow. Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey is a personal hero of mine who nobody has replicated his model of bringing the entire diaspora together to recognize our strength. He would often say at the end of his speeches, "Up, you mighty people, accomplish what you will." We've not had a leader before him or after him. He, for me, was the real Moses of Black people.
Wow. Redlining.
Yeah. Redlining is the last vestige of segregation. That is the area chart, for those who don't know, that banks use not to do funding or development. It is the precursor for gentrification, where they let areas, community, and houses go down until they lost their value, and then they come in and buy up the property and let Caucasians take it.
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama was the substance of things hoped for, the evidence not seen. He gave us hope, but never manifested it. So it was good for my morale, but we don't have evidence of the change of policy.
Woo-wee. That might be a clip that get out. Jamal Harrison Bryant. Let's do one more. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, in the words of Cornel West, is the president that America deserved. He pulled the sheets off of how racist this country really is and made America look at itself and see its brokenness, its flaws, and its failures. And Donald Trump is America's greatest product.
Wow. Sir, I want to say thank you again so much for being with me tonight.
I appreciate it.
You mean so much to me. I have appreciated you forever, and I never take for granted that you're always there whenever I call. I really appreciate that.
No, it's a privilege. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me on your platform. I'm grateful for you. I'm excited about your future from
Yes,
one PK to another.
Yes.
That is yet to come.
I receive it in the name of Jesus. Listen, tomorrow night, I'll be right back here at the same time with the one and only Brian Kahn tomorrow night at 9 p.m. It's been over 2 years since we've been on the same platform at the same time, being seen, talking to each other. So it's going to be fun and interesting tomorrow night. I cannot wait for you to see what we got in store for you. Listen, once again, as Jamal already said, I try to give you the best. So all of this stuff I've had to invest in. So if you see fit, I don't really push it, but if you see fit, bless the Cash App you see running across the screen, Cash App sign, Frank Ray, and the number 3. I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you tomorrow night. I pray that you're blessed. I pray that the favor of the Lord is with you everywhere you go. I pray that the blood of Jesus cover you from danger seen and unseen. Until we meet again, I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you again, Jamal.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.